Coming to you from an undisclosed location somewhere in the northern hemisphere, waiting out the alien apocalypse. He is armed with a machete and a microphone. This is the Mysterious Outpost.
All right, welcome Linda Moulton Howe. I thank you very much for spending your time with me. We are at the 2018 Ozark UFO Conference. I believe this is the 31st annual conference, and I wanted to try to get you last year on video, but you, like I told you pre-taping this, is that you are like a rock star when it comes to these conferences. I don't know how you keep moving, how you keep doing it, but thank you very much for spending your time with me, and hopefully we can talk about some fascinating subjects, maybe about your lecture you had, Whistleblower Revelations about AI and the alien presence. Thank you for coming on.
Well, thank you. And this year of 2018, what has almost emerged suddenly is the importance of being able to communicate about the existential threat of artificial intelligence. 2 years ago, I did not have the awareness that I do now. And it started in July, August of 2017. In the prior year, I had been communicating with a Marine who had retired from the Marines but was working special forces. And he had been communicating to me about a number of ET-related revelations, secrets that he and a team of special forces were involved with. And so he had kept in touch with me, usually through short texts, or every once in a while, he would call and say, you're tapped, I'm tapped, I'm only going to speak for, and it would be like 30 seconds or a minute, and then hang up. And I understood why, and that was what we were doing. Well, it was in August of 2017. The phone rang, I picked it up, I knew his voice. Can't stay on the line long, but I want you to know that this week, which would have been second week of August 2017, in Japan, 29 humans were killed in a laboratory that was producing militarized robots by the Japanese for warfare. And then he went on to explain what he had learned, because they're in these units, that something like that would happen, they would receive information. And he said that the story was the 4 militarized robots were being made to be autonomous warriors. And that they don't know why, but the 4 rebelled or acted autonomously, and as they acted autonomously, they killed 29 humans in this lab, and whoever was left on the human side began pulling, this is the way he said, they began pulling the robots apart. They got 2 of them completely disassembled, were working on the 3rd, and then the analysis later was what happened with the 4th. The 4th was communicating with a satellite that they were teaching these militarized robots how to communicate with the satellites to get information on missions, and that the 4th robot was now extending up to the satellite and was searching for information about how to make itself stronger to take on, apparently, the remaining humans. What did they do exactly to that 4th? I don't know, but I understand they took it apart. Would they ever put them back together? So now we're up to a point in August of 2017 where I'm hearing a story that is shocking, and I would say is like a warning that hits you out of the blue, that if in August of 2017 4 militarized robots being taught to be autonomous could do that in a lab, it made Elon Musk only 2 months before in June at the Rhode Island Governors Association meeting. There were 33 governors from the United States, and Elon Musk was one of the invited speakers. And when they sat him down in a chair and they started asking him his perspective as being head of Tesla and SpaceX, he said, I think that the greatest problem that scares me the most is artificial intelligence. And he said statements like, people don't understand that the robots, they are not going to need sleep. They're not going to need sick days. They're going to be able to do everything better, faster, more efficiently, and smarter than humans. And then he went on and he said, I am convinced that artificial intelligence right now is an existential threat to this planet. That means
remarkable.
Existential means annihilation, existential threat. And then, as I began doing research after that phone call, I learned that Stephen Hawking, who is now passed, but that Stephen Hawking shared Elon Musk's worry, Bill Gates. There are a lot of people. Bostrom in England was one of the first people to cry out, and he is considered one of the brightest people in computers on the planet. And he started warning 2 years ago in 2016, humans, we are racing toward replacing. And here are statistics that are current in 2018. By the year approximately of, we're at 2018 and add 11 to 12 years to that, so you go to 2030, that they are expecting by 2030 or before that 30% of all truck driving, transportation is going to be done by robots. Mm-hmm. That's a whole segment of population around the world of people who are in the truck driver capacity who are going to be replaced by robots. And as you go down the list of everything that we know, from secretaries and restaurants and food preparers and on and on.
Walmart's already.
Exactly.
The cashiers are automated.
And when Elon Musk, this is after the Governors Association, Elon Musk, somewhere around January to February, in another interview, he said, I think that we have only 4 years, 2018 to 2022, in which the planet, not just the United States, it must be international agreements. And it has to do with autonomous logarithms. If they're going to try to make robotic military weapons or robots, autonomous means the human is taken out of the equation.
Human equation, yeah.
And the autonomous robot is going to be making the shoot to kill judgments.
That's what scares me, Linda, because who's to say that they won't place these militarized autonomous robots on every corner, movie theaters, schools, stores, checkpoints, etc.
That's right.
It gives me goosebumps just even thinking about it.
Well, and one of the news headlines, just in the last, since January of 2018, they're planning on putting robots in security at airports. And when you think that they're trying to get the robots into security in the next year or two, and the tension I feel going into an airport and going into security now.
It's already crazy.
And knowing there is this backstory that there have been militarized robots in Japan that killed humans. And Elon Musk, when he talked to the governors in Rhode Island last year, he said, I realize that most people are not going to understand this until robots are going down the streets killing people. He's obviously extremely aware of what is going on in the back channels.
Just like the movie I, Robot.
He knows that robots have killed humans. So How do we, as a human world society, how do we get a handle, how do we get logical, wise control on the issue of autonomy?
Hey, Linda, you was talking about Elon Musk. I'm very surprised that the deep state has not tried to take him out, because it seems like he is trying to expose the dangers of robots and AI. That is definitely a threat to the AI agenda. Do you agree?
Well, I'll tell you, my perspective on Elon Musk is that he has been read into CIA, NSA, DIA programs. I know to the world, Elon Musk is an extremely bright and aggressive, sort of a unique individual who has been able to do something that probably very few humans could ever do, and that is, in a young lifetime, he has been able to form Tesla and SpaceX, and he runs both, and they are both becoming successful, and he wants to go to Mars. My own suspicion is that he is leading the charge that he says, he's going to launch by 2024, and maybe as late as 2026, but he says he wants to get to Mars and he wants to die on Mars. And he told a reporter this year that I don't mean that I have a death wish. What I mean is I want to die on Mars because that would mean I got there and that I lived a life on Mars because, and here's what I think is behind all of this. I have interviewed astronauts who were in the Apollo program. More than one of them have said, if we do not get off of planet Earth, if we do not get a base on the moon and Mars, we probably are in existential trouble because we are on an unstable planet. This is a planet that we know by whether you're talking about glaciation, whether you're talking about heating, whether you're talking about earthquakes, volcanoes. One big, huge volcanic eruption can put enough ash in the sky to cause what they call a global winter. Mm-hmm. We do not know what the Earth is going to do at any hour of any minute. That's a contender in all of this. Then you have the question of when are humans going to get past tribal warfare? And that in 2018, we are challenged by seeing two nations, the United States and Russia, with backups by North Korea and China, getting into arguments and discussions and threats about starting a nuclear war. So between the unpredictability of the Earth, the unpredictability of human tribal warfare, anybody who steps back from both of those says, we better, if humans are going to survive, we better get some other base off of the Earth. Mm-hmm. Now, the astronauts were the first to be saying this, and Elon Musk, he's doing it with his actions. So I think anybody who seriously is in the planning stages of literally launching to Mars by 2024, let's say that's the earliest, they have to be doing it in collaboration with NASA, and NASA is under the thumb of the CIA, always has been, always will be. It is not a free public agency. That's what it says to the world. Mm-hmm. It is taking orders from the CIA. The CIA works with the NSA, the DIA, the NRO, and the 17 agencies.
Where does the secret space program fit in that picture?
You can't have a secret space program without these agencies. They're the ones. These are trained, intelligent operatives since World War II on the counter-intel side. If they didn't have really effective, smart, brilliant counter-intel, we would not have had UFOs and ETs kept away from the public and the media from World War II to 2018, 70 years. That wouldn't have happened. There would have been so many leaks. We would know by now. It's counter-intel. That's how effective they are. So you have the public face that is going to interact with Congress and with Elon Musk from the CIA, NSA. Then you have counter-intel. big part of the underneath the iceberg.
Mm-hmm.
It's all operating in the secret space program, which was formed in the 1950s. And we know that from astronauts too. And I would wager money that Elon Musk has some sort of a contractual arrangement, an agreement through NASA, which is to the CIA, that SpaceX has some kind of a deal. And in having a deal, he's had to sign non-disclosure agreements. And the non-disclosure agreements then allow the CIA and the NSA and the intel agencies and counter-intel to tell Elon Musk the truth. We're not alone in this universe. We never have been. And that there is ancient archaeology on Mars. And that ancient archaeology is in the Northern Hemisphere, in the region called Cydonia, where there is a huge carved face. NASA's effort, JPL's effort, the CIA's effort to convince the public, no, it's not a carved head. That's an illusion, a trick of light and shadow. That was the formal first explanation by JPL and NASA back in '76, that this photograph, that suddenly that would hit the world, my God, there's a huge carved hill on Mars in Cydonia. And then other scientists like Mark Carlotto and DiPietro and there were a group, very, very bright guys. And they start looking at this and they dismissed immediately NASA's explanation that it was a trick of light and shadow. And these guys, I met all of them. I've interviewed all of them. I have worked with Mark Carlotto. And they know this is real. There is ancient archaeology on Mars. The disconnect between true study, profound research with hard evidence that those guys have done, and how easy it is for counterintelligence to then make a buffer zone between those that are really telling the truth, who really have details, and a lie, a policy of denial. No, it's a trick of light and shadow, and we'll show you why. And they put out into the public what we call it the erasure. It's the erasure photo. It's as if somebody came and ordered and said, you do Photoshop on that hill, and then you send it to the New York Times and the Guardian. And you say, this is what it really looks like. Everybody who has studied anything know that photograph, the erasure, so that there's no features, and it was deliberate. This was 15 years ago or something. It went out around the world to every media. This is what this really looks like. That's counter intel. Has nothing to do with what is really there. And this brings into focus the entire planetary problem that we have. We are living on a concocted Earth. It has been held in a straitjacket by minority forces for at least 5,000 years of what we'll call modern civilization. That 1%, and they might very well be that some of that 1% are not human, that they are from some other planet. And this is a project they've got. And when I think about, and Jim Mars and I used to talk about this, if there's 1% that has been controlling and manipulating the planet genetically, the barter system, every aspect of Earth for at least 5,000 years, what is it that the non-humans want? And that comes to, in 2018 at the Eureka Springs Ozark UFO Conference. I wanted to do something special in which I could highlight what I think is the greatest threat now on the planet, artificial intelligence that goes in an autonomous, militarized direction. But I did a pivot about halfway through the presentation on AI. The pivot in content was to go into a Reagan briefing that was given for the president in 1981 by then the director of the CIA that he had appointed, William Casey. And they did a briefing saying that our government knew and was studying and collaborating with or investigating 5 extraterrestrial biological entities. And that on a list of 5, 1, they call the EBENs as an acronym of that phrase, extraterrestrial biological entities. The next 2 on the list were made genetically by the one on top. So that means that 2 civilizations out on different planets were made by a prime intelligence, the way we are beginning to experiment with making autonomous robots, and we're moving into the organic world of cyborgs and making androids and clones that will start out being something that will take human direction. But when does that stop? So in the 5 on the list presented to Ronald Reagan, 2 are in the category of autonomous robots, but they're not machines, they're organic. And so if they have been placed on other planets, we don't know for sure what the Eben prime planet, it's said to be Zeta Reticuli 1 and 2. But suddenly you begin to grok a picture that throughout the entire universe, galaxy to galaxy, and there are trillions of galaxies, prime intelligence, there might be 100 prime intelligences. Let's say in this entire universe, a prime intelligence is that which has an original source, has evolved organically, and reaches a place of advanced state, mind, body, spirit. That's the assumption of a prime intelligence. And you could take this universe that is 13.9 billion light years, and you could have 100 prime intelligences. And they alone could be responsible for populating trillions of planets if our model of the Ebens and what they have done is create artificial intelligence in an organic way and put them on their own planets, planet by planet by planet. That's the implication of the Reagan briefing. So you extend your political clout in the universe, your territorial occupation, not by having to leave whatever the prime intelligence's planet is. You make dozens of different models for different planetary systems, and they're connected directly to the prime intelligence. But on all of those planets, unless you know how the whole scheme is working, if we hadn't had the briefing, we would never have known that the big-nosed greys, by our government's definition, are genetically manipulated and created androids by the Ebens. And the same with the the quadloids that have 4 fingers, 4 toes. And it says in the briefing, this was a cloned hybrid from the Ebens, cross genetics, praying mantis insects, and lizard reptiles. So in one briefing for one president, and we haven't even gotten into what they describe as the dangerous tronoloids, which are supposed to be dangerous insects that can change their body forms and look just like us and walk around on our planet, and that they are on a planet that is only 10.5 light years from Earth. And once upon a time, a light year to me seemed forever. And now I am so inured that 10.5 seems like it's next door, because here's what's coming next. It's happening. We've been doing this in the secret space program. But here's what's going to come next to the public. We're going to have a scientific announcement. Einstein was right. At the speed of light, you can bend space-time. You bend space-time You don't have to go through Euclidean geometry of spending light years to travel anywhere. If you can bend space-time, we will be able to construct like subways. And you walk in and you plug in a number and you walk out and you are on Mars, in a substation on Mars. And then we're going to learn how to do it beyond our solar system. And pretty soon we'll have subways throughout the Milky Way galaxy. You get on a place at Earth and you walk out to wherever it is that you want to go. And we're going to discover there are other civilizations out there. And they have looked at us as babies. And now we're getting ready to start stepping from Earth to other places in this universe. And then, will humans take tribal warfare with them out into the cosmos? That, to me, is the ultimate question, given what is happening on Earth now. And if that is the ultimate question, it has to be of great concern to the prime intelligences. Would they let smart humanoids off of this planet if we do another nuclear war? And this is really significant.
That's a good point. Because
we've been threatened, and we have been told in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s by ETs. I know this for a fact. You will not be allowed to do nuclear explosions because you do not understand. When you separate, when you do fission at the atomic level, you are tearing into dimensions that you know nothing about. I know those words were said by ETs to a presidential level. And if we tear into dimensions that we know nothing about, this is the other part that was said to me that's chilling.
By this whistleblower?
No, this is discussions going back into the 80s and 90s of what we're talking about now, of the impact. Why in the 50s, 60s, and 70s we were having discussions about what had happened at the Minuteman missile sites. My own brother was involved with an investigation at Malmstrom in 1973-4. So these discussions go back to the 1980s, which when we would gather at any kind of a conference, this was one of the big issues. It's very clear that something in the non-human category is interfering with Minuteman missiles, not to launch them, but to shut them down, and that there have been communications about you cannot do this because you do not understand that you're tearing into other dimensions. So this is the side that was always chilling. If we tear into other dimensions in unleashing an atomic bomb or a hydrogen bomb, what could come from those other dimensions into our dimension that is never supposed to cross barriers?
Mm-hmm.
That has been suggested to me by a person who was in the Air Force and then worked for Intel. He said, we know, Linda, in complete and total ignorance, when we have exploded some of the bombs that we have exploded, without realizing what we were doing, we allowed things to come in here that are horrible. It's almost karmic. We get told by ETs, you cannot do this, we will stop you again. And yet, in our first atomic tests, it was enough to open up dimensions and let something in here that is supposed to be very dangerous.
Did he mention what type of things?
In the old mythology, in the oldest books, there has always been the description of the dimension next door, like the universe is this thing that seems endless to us, but actually can be contained. And that it is contained by a dimension called astral, A-S-T-R-A-L. And that beyond the astral, 2, 3, 4, maybe infinite. But that the astral dimension is probably the one that the military people have warned me and said when we did the fission bombs, this is what we tore into and unleashed. I had a discussion last year in 2017 with a physicist, and he has been working on extraterrestrial matters most of his career. He cannot come out into the public, has signed non-disclosure agreements. He actually is happy now to talk to somebody like me. He knows I will never use his name. I will never reveal where he is. But I can share the concepts from some of these people. Journalistically, it's not as solid as it should be because you always want to be able to give exactly who, what, where, and why. But when you can't, and the information is important for humans to understand this is real, he said that in a project that he was working on underground for the government having to do with UFOs and ETs and the back engineering of technology, that he was introduced for the first time that in the astral dimension that is encompassing our universe, I'm going to use a word that he used. And I understand that it is a loaded word that carries a lot of baggage and that I don't fully understand even what it is. But I'm going to use the word demon. He said that it's his understanding that in the astral plane, there really are demons in the old classic Latin that are soulless, and that what they want more than anything else are souls. And that dimension is always trying to find a way to penetrate this universe. And once they do, their only goal is to come up with some sort of a temptation of not just humans, of any consciousness in this universe that has soul. The demons want souls to get out because souls are the only e-ticket out. And if you're in a dimension where everything there is deliberately soulless for reasons that are not clear, and it is always looking for a way to get a soul, then the biggest picture that you can draw on everything is that the only real game in town is becoming conscious that you have a soul and that there is an ongoing machinery of souls, whether you live 30 years, 3,000 years, 30 million years. If there is a cycle of life and consciousness, and it is all tied around the soul, what would it be like to live on this planet if the surface of bodies had no meaning? None. And it was only the soul that was the only thing that counted in every relationship, every work, everything.
Mm-hmm. What if these, you got my mind going now, Linda. What if these demons are, I guess you could say they are possessing certain elite members of the world, the ones that are pulling the strings behind the scenes? And what if these certain individuals are possessed, or some other researchers may say that they are shapeshifters, alien shapeshifters, or hybrids, or whatever. But what if these demons, shapeshifters, alien hybrids, or whatever, these people that are pulling the strings behind the scenes, what if they are for this AI agenda because they want us to be soulless? They are taking these souls and they want to go towards a technocratic AI society future, and that's exactly, I think, what possibly their agenda is. These certain figureheads in the world, I don't think they have souls. And they are stealing the soul. If this, if this is true, they are taking the souls, like you were saying, and they are pushing this AI agenda. What do you think about that, Linda?
When I started doing Glimpses of Other Realities, Volume 1 and 2, it's my 2-volume work. It's about 1,000 pages between the 2 books, and it took 8 years to do them. And I remember that it was the strongest provocation that I had for doing that big 2 volumes was what is in the second volume, and only 100 pages of about 1,000, but these 100 pages were the reason I wanted to do the 2 books, to put all this context so that when you would read these 100 pages, you'd have before and after context. And the 100 pages are about what is called the resurrection technology by the abductees. It was abductees that I had interviewed, and they had been exposed to tubes in which there were human bodies, extraterrestrial bodies, all kinds of bodies, and telepathically the Ebens explained to the humans that had been abducted that they could use a cloning mechanism. All they need is some cells from inside of your mouth, and then they can make a whole one of you. No baby stage. Mm-hmm. At any age that they want. And in those 100 pages, 6 people talk about their experiences with this resurrection technology. And where those discussions with those abductees led was, if we are dealing with advanced beings who can just take sperm, eggs, cells from somebody, put it in this technology, you, me, where there could be a whole bunch of us, duplicated, triplicated, that we don't know that exactly you, me, anybody could be on other planets, all part of a network test or a monitoring in which the bottom line would all have souls, or only the original one from which the genetic material was taken. And if there is some huge value having to do with a soul, and a lot of the non-humans don't have one, that same conversation leads to, who are these 1%ers that have been manipulating and bullying and pushing this world around for the last at least 5,000 years? Are the 1% that control Earth so less? It is actually a fundamental and very relevant question. It is not sci-fi. And how many of the 7.2 billion that is supposed to be the current population of Homo sapiens sapien on Earth and growing exponentially? We're supposed to be at 10 billion in another 20 years. Can't even imagine. What percentage of the current 7 billion are Homo sapiens sapien? My own personal guess, based on everything I've been exposed to, is maybe 70%. The 30% now on planet Earth are ET, human hybrids.
Okay, to the ETs that are here on Earth, I believe there are good and bad ETs here. And this is how we're going to round this off, Linda. Is there infighting amongst these ETs that are here on Earth? Is there a secret war that's going on? And I guess who are winning? And what is the ultimate agenda? And the floor is yours. This is where we're going to leave off.
You're asking questions that I am asking every person that I cross paths with of any kind of a military or intel or any relationship that I think that they might have some knowledge in. constantly is, we don't know. But the answer that I feel strongly that I can say generally is that I have talked to people with great substance over the last 20, 25 years, in which they have said, we are on a planet where there have been, I'll sum up from a 1999 December, he had retired from the Defense Intelligence Agency, and he worked through a man who worked for the World Bank to have a meeting with me because of my 2-volume book, Glimpses of Other Realities. And in the introduction to me about why we should do this meeting, he said that I have worked for our government for 23 years trying to understand and monitor the geopolitical territorial conflict of 3 competing extraterrestrial biological civilizations. So he says 3 in perpetual battle. And they don't battle with bullets or anything that we would consider as weapons. They battle by being able to manipulate timelines. And they battle by mind over mind. And they use holograms and neutralizing gravity as their technologies. Now, if you add to that statement that we are dealing with advanced beings that can clone any body of anything from anywhere in this universe, let alone this planet, we come down to a discussion having to do with the mysterious lights making crop formations in England. And this goes back probably somewhere around the year 1996. And I was shown videotape in England by a man who spent endless nights with good film equipment on tripod, did it professionally, trying to capture lights that would be making crop formations. That's what he lived for. Mm-hmm. And he showed me a videotape in England that showed 6 balls of light moving in patterns between 2 hills. And there was a crop formation up on one hill. And it was late afternoon. And all of a sudden you hear the chop, chop, chop. And coming up over this hill is a big Apache helicopter, bristling with weapons and some sort of a big canister underneath, which I later learn has infrared equipment. Because this man is told, and I was told also separately, that the United States government, working in collaboration with England and our World War II allies, we fly a certain infrared technology to aim at what look like humans in order to determine if they have ETs inside the bodies. That is a reality. Should any of us panic? No. I am a living testimony. I have walked the 2 hemispheres. I have been in dozens and dozens and dozens of countries. I've been totally by myself so many times, gathering tissue from mutilated animals to get to pathologists or veterinarians. I've looked up at the sky occasionally and said, I'm really vulnerable. If you want to take me, I understand this is, and the fact that nothing has happened like that says to me that becoming conscious of everything we've just discussed does not mean that you have to become afraid of it. The best thing that you can possibly do, and I have told more than 1,000 abductees the same thing in interviews I've done, the best thing you can do for yourself at all times is always move to curiosity. Who, what, Why? Whatever appears in front of you, try to mentally say, give me a break. Let me have a chance at taking a telepathic download. Try it for 3 seconds. See if I can handle it. That we don't need to run. We don't need to cower. And we sure as heck don't need to get down on our knees. If we start eye to eye with alien intelligences, give me a chance. Don't take me out. Don't make my consciousness leave. Seems like we're kind of at that intersection. And we can't have those kinds of dialogues until there is an entire political announcement with headlines this big, we are not alone in this universe. And once that has happened in every square inch of the planet, and every single village has been exposed, and they start talking, we're not alone. There are other things here. Then everything shifts in a paradigm that will never go back to where we have, I think unfairly, been kept as a species in this universe for at least 5,000 years, dumb, blind, and ignorant about the true nature of our planet, the true nature of our universe, but more than anything else, the true nature of what Homo sapiens sapien is. And if we are somebody else's intelligent androids, I'm not offended. I want to know who, what, and why made us. And what are they waiting for? When do we get a public handshake? Why should any population of 7 billion consciousnesses, and hopefully most of them having souls, why should they be allowed to be kept in a concocted planet, completely in the dark, on purpose? I reject that. That is at the heart of everything I have ever done, and I am going forward. I want to crack those questions. I want to understand that. And I would love to live to see this planet after the big headline around the world, we're not alone. Because frankly, I think 2/3 of the global population is already way past that headline. And then nobody has to worry about stock markets falling or religions crumbling or people going into hysteria. And so I hope as we do this interview and we go forward in 2018, I hope that worldwide headline happens in 2018 so that we have at least crossed into a more honest planet before Elon Musk gets into his SpaceX rocket and takes off to start a new branch of humans on Mars.
Very, very fascinating, Linda. You are giving me goosebumps during this interview. This was a treat and honor, and I think you have done a perfect job in cracking a lot of those questions throughout your past in researching this. And thank you very much for your time, Linda.
Oh, thank you. God bless.